All right, that's recording.
It says recording, but it doesn't have the counter going. There we go. All right, I might have to cut the front of this one off, so let's give it a second, and then I'll get started.
Okay.
All right. Welcome, this is Stephen Follett with Thunderbird Long Range. I have Paul Butler with Rauch Precision and Evolved Ballistics. And we're here on the third part of his three-part series on supported shooting. And so I'll let you go ahead and take it away from there, Paul.
All right, sure. Yeah, we're covering the 5 fundamentals of supported shooting. So we already covered applying the fundamentals, which is that first one. We also talked about low center of gravity, and we talked about recoil management. All those things are essential to building that good supported position. So the last two that we're going to talk about is surface contact and rear elbow support. So surface contact, we'll just start off with that one. Surface contact, the more surface contact you have with horizontal and vertical objects around you, the more it's going to allow you to hold yourself up, the more friction you're going to have. So that friction allows you to do two things. If I'm leaning up against a horizontal object, a vertical object, and I kind of allow myself to rest on it, that allows me to get good muscle relaxation, which helps me with my applying the fundamentals. If I'm able to lay on something that is horizontal and gain more surface contact with it, I mean, just an example for the prone, for example. I mean, there's a lot of surface contact in there, and it does two things. One, it allows me to gain muscle relaxation and good bone support, but it also allows me to have good recoil management as well. And so you can see how all these are tying into one another. So the surface contact is a big deal in recoil management and muscle relaxation. And one of the biggest things, and it's worded specifically horizontal, which most people think of horizontal objects of gaining surface contact. Prone is the first one. Also, when guys have to shoot over the hood of a vehicle, what you should do is lay on top of the vehicle hood if possible. Gains you more surface contact, better muscle relaxation, allows for more bone support, essentially a standing prone. So that one is obvious to most people. But the horizontal surface contact is what a lot of people don't, or sorry, the vertical is what a lot of people don't think of. Leaning up against a pole or just leaning up against anything that's upright, part of the barricade, anything that you can get a hold of that's going to allow you to relax is going to allow you to put that relaxation into the gun and reduce your wobble. So just looking for little small things. I think I mentioned this in an earlier episode, but we talked about how there's this one barricade that we did when we were shooting the urban sniper course on one of our qualifications, and we called it the Dirty Mother. Guys hated shooting off of it. Well, there's one tent stake, or there's one stake that comes off of the barricade that helps hold it up, and guys are struggling trying to hit these 4-inch targets at 200 yards, and all I did was have them take your knee and lean it up against that. It's a vertical object. They just lean their body up against it. They're getting a little bit more surface contact. All of a sudden, it brought that wobble right inside the target area, and guys are hitting targets left and right. And it's just little small things like that can make a huge difference. So, I mean, have you seen stuff like that as far as like going out into on the competition and the ranges?
Yeah, so what I found is, and I don't know why I don't see, excuse me, why I don't see more people do it is when shooting on the barricade, right? It's got the steps, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is they'll come up to the barricade, they'll set their shooting bag right on the horizontal plane,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll shoot off of it.
Yeah.
But what I've always done is I have set the bag in the corner,
Yep.
and then jammed it all and smashed it all up into the corner. And uh, I'm not making this an advertisement, but I guess it is to some extent. But that was one of the things that I found was that I do with my with the tacky sack, right? Because it's got the big tall legs, the tall ears or legs, whatever. So I just jam it down in there, and I just slam it into the corner and just smash it up there with my hand. And so that's not necessarily the vertical support for me.
It is for the rifle itself. There's two aspects for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is for the rifle. And that makes sense for the body as well, because then you've got direction this way, you've got direction this way, and to any extent you can reduce that, absolutely. And what I've always tried to do is lean up against something. If there's ever a vertical, or like you're saying, a vertical or a horizontal, I just try to lean up against it. I try to, like on the hood of a car or something long, I will get as much of my chest onto it as I can. And I think that's what a lot of people are calling modified prone, because it's because you've got your body on the ground, but you're not fully laid out, but you're laying across the hood to do that. So yeah, shooting off of the hood. There was a stage where we were in the back of a Jeep, and it had a roof rack, an expanded metal roof rack, right? So a lot of people were just kind of setting a bag up there, but I threw it as far forward as I could. Maybe being taller helped me, but I had my chest kind of leaning on it, and the bag up there, and the bipod as far forward. Like if it's a longer barricade, I will get my body onto it if the barricade will support me. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's really two aspects to it, like you kind of hit on with the rifle. I mean, obviously with our body, we want to touch with our body as many supportable, firm objects as possible to get into position. But the rifle is the other thing as well, just like you said, and that's what we teach on and harp on all the time, is getting that rifle and slamming up into the corner. And if you're right-handed and you're shooting from a right side of the barricade, that's sometimes also just taking your thumb underneath and pushing the rifle into the barricade itself. Or you see some guys that'll grab on top of the scope and just kind of doing the same thing. But if you get into that corner, now you have a vertical surface and you have a horizontal surface. Because I'm sure you've probably seen it with the wobble. If you just go right into the middle, you have your body and your shoulder is basically putting movement into right. That's why those bags the guys put underneath are so wide, to reduce the wobble. But you can reduce that even more so by coming up against a solid object, and now it's perfect. So that's just another way of doing it.
I've noticed when I've got a wall or something to lean up against, or I can lean over. Part of it is leaning over and putting my elbow on something. That's
we'll talk about that next.
Rear elbow support, so we can hit that. But just leaning my body over, it just allows an additional level of relaxation, right? We talked earlier about the muscle relaxation. I realized that I was standing there, I had my knees locked, but I was still clenching my quads and my butt, all those muscles were still tight. And I realized that I could relax those muscles. Well, once I lean up against something, I can feel other muscles that I can just relax, and my body doesn't move. And so I become more of the dead weight, which is better for recoil management, and I'm relaxed, and the wobble zone decreases. So for me, when I lean against something, it's I'm not moving. Like you put your shoulder up against it, you really can't move against the wall.
Exactly. Yep.
So at least you cut down the wobble that, but then I'm also able to just relax additional muscles and reduce the muscle tension.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing with surface contact. And so that's a great segue actually into going into rear elbow support. So surface contact and rear elbow support actually go really well hand in hand together. But I'll get to that, but I'm going to start with why rear elbow support is so important. So there was two guys, and it was before I was at the Urban Sniper course, but we had two guys that went to, I can't remember what sniper competition it was. It was either international or USAC, I'm not sure, but either way, before they went to the Urban Sniper course, and this was really before improvised position was taught as widely as it is now. But during there, we taught them these 5 principles, and they went through and they went to the competition. They were so far ahead by the second to last day, they didn't even have to compete the last day because no one could have beat them. They were just smoking everyone, and they were checking them, thought they were cheating, all this sort of stuff. But it came down to, and they asked them, it was like, what did you do? They said every single position we went into, we said, how can we get rear elbow support in this position? That was what they did. That was their mental approach to every single obstacle they came to. And so, why is rear elbow support so important? Well, like I defined, I believe in the very beginning of these episodes, that supported shooting is basically anything besides the shooter that's supporting the front of the rifle. So the front of the rifle is supported, whether that's a tripod, a rock, a log, bipods, whatever it is, the front of the rifle is supported. Now, what makes shooting in the prone and shoot off of a bench so stable is the fact that I have a rear bag that I put there. Now I have 2 points of contact, preferably as far apart as possible. It's going to create the most stability. Well, when I go and I put my rifle on top of a barricade, if I don't have my knee there or I don't have anything else, that back end is essentially floating and it is directly connected to my body. Well, my hand, which is connected to the rifle, is connected to my elbow. If I can get my elbow on something, I've created essentially a contact point in the rear for the rifle. So that is what that allows me to do. I have 2 solid points. That allows me to get very, very solid in a position.
And it also goes back to and relates to bone support, right? If you got your chicken wing out there, it's all this bone is unsupported, and so you put a bag in there, then you've got the support from your elbow to your firing hand, and that's just going to reduce all these joints from it isolates your elbow, your firing hand, from the rest of your body a lot more than just with it hanging out there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw this out there, and I'll probably catch some flack for it, but that's okay. A lot of times what you see guys doing in PRS competitions is from some of the stages, because I've talked to them like, hey, get rear elbow support here, and a lot of guys will opt for the free recoil over trying to get rear elbow support. So essentially they try to minimize as much contact with the rifle as possible, let it sit there. And that absolutely works when you're shooting low recoiling cartridges with extremely heavy rifles. A lot of those guns hardly move at all, especially like you got a 6- or a 6.5 47. Like those are really low recoil rounds. When you have a 20-pound rifle, it's not going to be a lot of recoil. But I teach the fundamentals. You do that same concept of free recoil with an unbraked hunting 270. It's not going to work out very well for you.
Not going to happen.
Or a 30-06 or a 7 mag or anything like that. So I like to teach things that are going to across the board help a shooter out, because it is a fundamental. It works in all situations. There may be situations where your rifle and your caliber allow you to do free recoil. I'm not bashing on it. I'm just saying that free recoil does not work in every situation. Getting rear elbow support does.
What I found is there's certain positions and certain situations that I've been in where I try to build a shooting position and I just can't. I just the way the target, the angle, and everything, and I will default to the trick, which would be, I never do like complete free recoil, but I will just minimize my input to the rifle. And so that's like a trick. But more often, what I've found, especially in my dry fire and a couple times I've gone out shooting, is to practice what we've talked about, is that I couldn't free recoil across the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many situations that I need to apply the fundamentals. And so it literally, the fundamentals are just going to apply across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But in small situations, free recoil might work out just because
Right.
I can't apply the bone support. I can't get elbow support. It's just I'm contorted. I'm under the time constraints, right? In
Right.
90 seconds, I got a free recoil. If I had more time, I could find a better shooting position. A better, I'm not
Right.
going to have to take one of those shots hunting, right? I'm just not going to take one of those,
Right.
uh, right? But the fundamentals, I guess, is what I'm saying, have improved my shooting across the board in every position.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I can do that better than I could free recoil in every position, right? Free recoil just doesn't work in every position.
Right.
Whereas learning and applying what we've talked about does.
Yeah, you'll apply something in some way, shape, or form to any position that you shoot in. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's not anything crazy. As I said, I'm not opposed to free recoil. It's just it has limited application,
Yeah.
in my mind at least. So I'd like to go on to another part of rear elbow support that ties into surface contact. So like I mentioned at the very beginning. So just like, and you actually mentioned it, was you get in your rear elbow and you pin it up against a wall or pin it up against something. So
Mm-hmm.
you're actually combining surface contact with also pinning the elbow. The elbow doesn't necessarily have to rest on anything. If I can push my elbow up and lock it in place, that is essentially rear elbow support. We do it all the time when we would shoot from buildings. Is if you can find a wall that you can lean up against from the standing position, all of a sudden you have rear elbow support in the standing position. That's a really great way to do it. So,
Even if you still have to support the front end of it with your hand and unsupported, we can
oh yeah,
still.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are both going to help as well. I mean, just from building a position, if you have the ability, if you're in the woods where they have a lot of trees, I don't know what that's like. We're here in Texas, so we don't have forests, but I know that there are areas because I've seen pictures of them where you have lots of trees and you can support the front of your rifle on the tree, and then with another tree behind it, kind of lean up against another tree, and now you've built yourself an extremely solid position. It's actually there's a little position that I shot off like that at FTW Ranch when we were doing some training. There was two trees. There's just a clump of trees, and so one tree I used to support the rifle. The other tree I leaned up my elbow against, and was able to take easy 300-yard standing shot completely unsupported. Besides my hand holding it up on the tree and my rear elbow pinned up against another tree. It works out. The fundamentals work. They apply in all situations and can help you. So that's kind of the last thing I really have on rear elbow support. But as I say to all my students as I'm teaching them, rear elbow support, rear elbow support, rear elbow support. If you remember anything I taught you from this class, it's rear elbow support.
Yeah.
It's critical to your supported position shooting.
Yeah, I find that interesting that you taught rear elbow support and they took really, probably more from the training, but at least that one specific thing from the training and
Mm-hmm.
were able to leapfrog ahead of where everybody else was.
Yeah, and again, it also goes to what we talked about a little bit last time is your mental mindset when you go into a position, and this is whether it's a hunting position, whether it's a PRS stage, whatever it is, your mindset of having a game plan. Your game plan should be set. It should be rehearsed mentally as you're looking at everything. And how am I going to get rear elbow support? How am I going to get as low as possible? How am I going to get good recoil management? How am I going to apply the fundamentals? How am I going to maximize surface contact with vertical and horizontal objects around me? It sounds like a huge list, but once you start doing it, a lot of those things you're going to pick up and you're going to key off of really quickly and automatically.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things, just like dry fire, you do it over and over and over again, and your body is going to naturally learn how to do these things. Your body is, I'm sure, and you were already talking about it, you do so much dry fire, your body kind of learns what
Yeah.
is stable, what is comfortable, and it starts to naturally just move into those positions. It just takes a little matter of time.
Yeah. I still have to consciously think relax, but I don't have to go to my individual muscle sets and say,
Hmm.
okay, relax that muscle. Is this muscle tight? Because I would have them tightened unconsciously. And so
Hmm.
now I'm getting past that to where I can just set in and I'm relaxed, that I have a position. So I'm teaching my body, like I know what I'm going through, and it's no longer a conscious thought, right?
Hmm.
To relax my legs. I still have to really take that deep breath, breathing just
Of course, yeah. I mean,
breathing
it's
actually changes,
natural.
physiologically to relax our body and slow our heart.
Hmm.
You can't really stop it really, but slow it. You can tell your body, hey, there's no threat, right? But going through that process has reduced reduced the wobble, and I'm able to do it faster just by the repetitions.
Yeah.
Uh, there was one other thing that I wanted to say was it's like uh, the things we do every day, driving. You don't you just think lights, and your hand can already be moving to turn the lights on, right?
Yeah,
I
I mean,
have
I'm
a
so good
stick
at
shift.
driving. I just text all the time, and I'm just kidding.
Right? The driving stick shift, right? You don't need
Yeah.
to think about what you're doing. It's time to shift, and then your
Hmm.
body kind of goes into those automatic learned behaviors. And so I find myself, I still have the list of what I want to do, and from this, and I'm going to add in low center of gravity and surface contact and rear elbow support now. Um, as a conscious part of the shooting checklist, but it's so much more natural, and so much of it is so interconnected,
Hmm.
right? The
Yeah.
rear elbow support, because I know it's not, because I know what it is isolating this so that it stops moving,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so it might be bone support on one part,
Hmm.
but in another place it might be, rear elbow support, or it might be surface contact, how they connect like that.
Hmm.
And so it seems more natural going up to it. And so going up to a barricade and or seeing an object on the road, everything is now a prop to shoot off of. I don't know if that's what happens to snipers, just doing it all the time and
Yeah.
actually in country. But as a competitor, I'm like, oh, that would be cool. How would I shoot that? Is it
Hmm.
long enough to get my
Right.
chest over the top of that power box? Whatever it might be. Um, and so mentally, I'm thinking of those things. And it's different because I'm thinking about it in context with your rules. Whereas before, I'd just be like, okay, flip out my bipod, and I'm going to stick my bipod on that thing, and then I'm gonna shoot. Right? I didn't have the checklist. I didn't have any of those things.
Hmm.
So just the training and just thinking about it and building this into it has made a huge difference for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and with that, you just mentioned that popped into my head. Also, do think about that is your bipods themselves. If you throw your bipods on the other side of the barricade, especially with Atlas bipods, and you throw them down, or you even click them one click back so they're back at an angle, you can throw over top, pull into the rear, and now you've got more surface contact, and you're also going to have extremely good recoil management.
Yeah.
I had a guy. He was shooting a 30-06. I was teaching him hunting. It was a break. I know there's no break on it. Light pencil barrel, and this kid was just getting pounded all day shooting. And he's like, "Oh, my shoulder hurts." And I took him out to shoot on a barricade. And I had him take his gun, put it over top, pull the bipods into the barricade, and he just sat there with one hand. The other hand was on the barricade, just hardly any recoil. It's like, why were we shooting like this all day? I was like, because I got to teach you the basics first, buddy. But it's just like, it makes a huge difference, and being able to follow up on your shots and stuff like that, it's great. So,
Yeah.
but
All those tips and techniques, right? But it comes from having an open mind to applying
mhm.
the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Uh, and you know, and I would go so far as to say that you know that free recoil can be an option,
Mhm.
right? But that's after you've gone through the checklist. You say, I've got the wobble. Well, do I have rear support? Can I get rear elbow support? Can I get more surface contact? Am I able to get more bone support? Can I get lower? And you're like, there's nothing else that I can do. My body is just imparting too much wobble into this, and I can't isolate it because I can't do anything else. And then you're left with, well, what can I do? Okay, the only option is for me not to touch the gun. That's the stablest it's going to be.
Yeah.
Right. And
I agree. Yeah.
And there's no perfect position other than like a prone position, right? Everything else is a compromised position, and you're weighing the factors.
Yep.
And so I think I heard you say, did I hear you correctly, that one of the most important factors, regardless of what you can do, is really look for the rear elbow support?
I think you heard me right. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I could take that away and maybe drive that point home, is that rear elbow support is a big piece of it. And so if you can start with rear elbow support and just kind of work the other things in, but give priority to rear elbow support.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I mean, I also have a priority myself, and I think I talked about this a little bit. I have a priority myself of which ones are most important to me. And so rear elbow support is obviously on the top of my list, but you think about it, rear elbow support, if I can support the front and the rear of the rifle, it kind of negates and takes out the shooter, really. So, I mean, there's really no need, not no need, but it reduces the amount of bone support and muscle relaxation that I have to have. Obviously, I still want to have a good natural point of aim, but it takes out some of that. It also, having rear elbow support, really, once I do that, if I get my body behind the rifle, the next important one for me is recoil management, being able to see where my shot goes. So those two are my top, getting recoil management and getting rear elbow support. Obviously, if I can do those two things, I'm going to have a stable shot, and I'm going to be able to see where that shot went, to be able to make follow-up shots or corrections. So those are my two important ones, and then the rest kind of fall down behind it. But that's what I look for going in.
Yeah, I can see where that would come into play and why you would say that, because if there's two main points of contact, the front of the rifle and the rear of the rifle, if the front of the rifle is on a barricade, then what's on the rear of the rifle? Those are the 2 points of contact.
The rifle stable.
And if you don't have a support bag, then it's really your firing hand, and the connection between your firing hand and your shoulder. And your shoulder is much more stable. So as the one thing that can upset the wobble the most, it's the elbow flopping out there.
Exactly. Yep. So if you can pin the shoulder, pin the elbow, support the elbow, all those things are going to, or support the rear of the rifle in some way. I'm not going to say that, but as long as the rear of the rifle is supported and the front of the rifle is supported, you have a stable position. And everything else is kind of secondary to that. So, because you can have a lot of things. I can have great recoil management and great surface contact, but if I'm not stable, all that does is allow me to see where I missed a bunch. Those things are they're not as important if I don't have the good stability to get my shots on target. So.
Oh, that makes sense. All right. Any final words or anything? I don't have anything else. I think you covered it well.
No, I think that's about it. I mean, we can have guys comment below, but definitely want to put something out there as far as try.